Have you ever had a fish pedicure? I remember when these were really popular, especially here in the UK. I think I had a fish pedicure like 10 years ago now or something like that. But fish pedicures, also known as Dr. Fish treatments, have been steadily growing in popularity even to this day for years and years and years, with a lot of salons and spas across the world now offering this service. But what may seem like a really nice, like fun, quirky way to help like exfoliate dead skin, get softer, smoother feet, has also led to a few health concerns, real health concerns, people losing body parts, ethical debates and bans in many places across the world. So today I want to talk about what these treatments actually involve, where they came from and what to look out for, all before we delve into a true story of just how badly things can go wrong with these fishy procedures, let's say. So first of all, for those who don't know, what are fish pedicures? I'm actually sure most of you have heard of these fish pedicures at some point. They've had a steady kind of popularity for almost a decade now, but for those who haven't, I'll try and give a quick explanation of what they entail. Fish pedicures are a beauty treatment, let's say, that involve you submerging your feet into a tank of fish. And these little fish are called Garra, Rufa, I believe they are called, or Dr. Fish. And the fish then kind of like nibble away at all the dead skin on your feet, leaving them smoother and softer. As I mentioned, I had this done before. It wasn't a nice experience. It was very tickly, and I spent the whole time trying not to like knock the fish or kick the fish because I'm very ticklish. And I ended up cutting my service short and just watching my friends have it done because I couldn't handle it and I felt bad. And this somewhat bizarre sounding practice actually originated in Turkey, where these fish have been used for over 400 years to help heal skin. Now, originally they were just used to soften the feet by eating the dead skin, but over time people started to believe that they also help provide like relief from conditions. In fact, one spa in Turkey in particular has been known as a healing destination for over 100 years now. And since 1988, it's actually been considered almost like a treatment center for people with psoriasis, and people come from all across the world to go to this particular healing center. I say healing center, there's no evidence. We'll talk about there's no evidence that these fish do that. And sometimes people actually take it one step further. Instead of just dipping their feet in, if they've got eczema, psoriasis all over, they'll obviously dip their whole bodies into this fish-infested water for healing purposes. There does actually seem to be some truth behind these claims, actually, that fish spas can help kind of like alleviate symptoms for psoriasis and eczema sufferers in particular. Multiple studies have shown a significant decrease in the appearance and symptoms of these conditions in the majority of test subjects, but it's not a cure. This is the thing, it doesn't cure these skin conditions, and the results are very, very temporary, usually lasting like a couple months until they have to go back and get eaten by fish again. And although these fish pedicures have been around for centuries, it's not until the last 20 years or so that they become really popular outside of Turkey and some other areas in the Middle East. Proprietors of the practice claim that not only do these fish give you like baby soft skin, but because these Dr. Fish, as they're called, don't actually have any teeth, the procedure is actually far more gentle and less harsh on your skin than a lot of traditional scrubs or like metal scraping tools that you often see in like spas and all that kind of stuff. And obviously you don't want to use a ton of actives when you do have eczema or psoriasis, so this is meant to be like a gentle alternative. And even if you don't, just a gentler way to exfoliate your skin, supposedly. And the practice is now popular all over the world, including in the US, the UK, and much of Europe as well. But with its rising popularity has come increased scrutiny, with more people questioning the alleged benefits, the ethics behind having these fish pedicures, and the safety of the fish pedicures themselves. Before we get into the true stories, let's discuss one common concern that actually comes from animal rights organizations, who point out that the fish nibbling at your feet have often been starved in between sessions, so that they're almost like forced to eat your dead skin. They don't actually want to, they're just desperate for food. They're also concerned about the poor treatment of the fish during transportation, with many of these fish actually dying on the journey to these spas. And there have also been reports of overfishing, severely depleting the numbers of these fish in their natural habitat. So they're just like disappearing now because everybody wants them in these perspex boxes in their spas. And in addition to these ethical concerns, many are actually against the practice for health reasons. In fact, the fish pedicures are banned in 18 US states and several Canadian provinces, as well as being banned in Mexico and in parts of Europe. And whilst they're not banned here in the UK, it's not recommended. Like, it comes highly unrecommended. And one of the main factors behind those bans is the fact that even if the spa is making an effort to sanitize the tanks and the water between customers, which not all of them do properly, there is no way to sanitize the fish themselves and their little mouths, their teethless mouths. And the fish aren't cheap, so businesses offering service can't afford to use new fish for each customer. They can't empty a tank, bring in new fish, I don't know, give the fish like a month off to to naturally sanitize. I don't know how you sanitize fish. I don't know how it works. It's impossible to sanitize the fish. So you go in for your appointment, you have a fresh batch of water, but they've just been nibbling at people's feet. They might have like little bits of dry skin in their mouth already. It's kind of gross. That means that there is a serious risk of cross-contamination as the same fish are used for multiple clients. And some studies have shown potential for spreading things like staph infections and even viruses like HIV or hepatitis C. The risk is made worse by the fact that some spas use the wrong species of fish, such as chin-chin fish, which look very, very similar to Dr. Fish with one difference. They can grow teeth. That means that they can actually cause cuts and bleeding, which makes the risk of cross-contamination even worse and actually makes the whole procedure very, very uncomfortable and even somewhat painful for some customers, which is the whole opposite of what this not procedure, I guess like spa treatment is supposed to do and feel like. In April 2011, British authorities discovered a significant bacterial outbreak among over 6,000 fish, which have been imported from Indonesia for use in British spas and salons. Now, these fish were infected with Streptococcus agalactae. I definitely said that wrong. But that's basically a bacteria that can cause pneumonia as well as infections in the blood, joints, and bones. Terrifying. But luckily, the outbreak was actually caught before anyone was infected, at least to their knowledge, as no relevant illnesses were reported. That's because they were caught. But these risks have unfortunately become a reality, and not everyone gets so lucky. Fish pedicure tubs filled with warm water and living creatures can, unsurprisingly, be a breeding ground for bacteria, and even the tiniest cut or sore can lead to a devastating infection, something that Victoria Curthoy of Perth, Australia, unfortunately learned the hard way. Victoria was on holiday in Thailand during 2010, and while she was there, she decided to visit a spa and get a fish pedicure. She's seen the rise in popularity of these treatments, back in Australia, and she really wanted to give it a go. Why not? She's on holiday, right? Unfortunately for her, it would be the start of a 7-year-long ordeal. Back in 2006, when Victoria was just 17, she cut the big toe on her right foot on a piece of glass. She said she didn't really notice the cut at first because it was on the bottom of her toe and really wasn't hurting her or bothering her in any way. But by the time she realized it was there, it was already too late. Her cut had become infected and the infection had spread into her bones. And doctors basically had to remove half of her big toe in order to stop the infection from spreading any further. Victoria didn't think anything of this when she was getting her fish pedicure 4 years later. She said she watched the owner of the spa setting it all up and everything looked very, very clean, very sanitary from what she could see. She had no worries about getting the treatment, but unfortunately, despite looking clean, the water was actually infected with Shigella, a type of waterborne bacteria found in Thailand. Victoria was fine at first. She had no idea anything was wrong during or shortly after the treatment, but when she got home, she started suffering from fevers and constant sickness. It took doctors more than a year of constant testing before they finally determined that the infection had been caused by the waterborne bacteria, which had seeped through her old surgery wounds on her big toe. They eventually diagnosed her with osteomyelitis, a painful bone infection which can actually lead to serious problems if not treated early. And because it took doctors so long to actually diagnose Victoria, it was too little, too late. Things had already gone too far. She said by the time they even realized what it was, her entire toe bone had been eaten away as she had been suffering from sickness the whole time. Doctors finally decided that what was left of Victoria's big toe actually had to be fully amputated this time round, leaving her with just 4 toes on her right foot. She said at the time that she kind of felt relieved that she'd just be able to go back to her normal life without being sick all the time, but unfortunately, it would still be years before Victoria's troubles came to a full stop. Over the next 5 years, all of Victoria's toes on her right foot would be amputated. She said that a year of walking around without a big toe had caused ulcers on the second toe from all the pressure being placed on it from like overcompensating. She said that she has some calluses on her other bigger toe, but she was unaware that there was like a raging infection under that toe too. So the doctors took her second toe and left her with 3 toes. She says, I was healthy for another 2 years. I thought I was very lucky to still have my foot and carry on with my life. But then I started to get sick again. Victoria was now throwing up every single morning and she had like a constant fever, but her doctors couldn't find any signs of infection or other reasons for her illnesses. So unbelievably, Victoria says they kind of like just fobbed her off for a long time and told it was just all in her head, which is kind of worrying, seeing as she's literally just had 2 toes removed because of a huge infection. For them to be like, oh, you're probably just making it up. It's kind of terrifying. Pretty awful at their jobs there, right? But eventually Victoria's pediatrist ordered blood samples and realized that she did in fact have another bone infection. This time surgeons amputated her 3rd and 4th toes, bizarrely just leaving her little toe on its own. And the increased pressure on her other toes after losing her big toe had already resulted in ulcers and infections. So I don't know why they thought they would just like leave it, like it wouldn't be an issue for that one little toe remaining. Whatever the reasoning was, they were wrong. Victoria said because the little toe was the only one left, I kept knocking it, and when I walked, all the pressure would go onto that one little toe. She says, I noticed my small toe wasn't looking very happy, and there was some liquid on my sock, but I couldn't see any cuts. So after a few more blood samples and more x-rays, they discovered yet another infection, so they finally took the last toe in November of 2017. So 7 years after this pedicure, Victoria's ordeal was finally over for now. She says there is still a possibility she could lose her entire right foot or even her entire right leg one day if she fails to spot any further infections. So it's something she really has to keep an eye on. She checks it every single day for pressure spots and other signs of infection. And Victoria now uses her story to warn against the dangers of using fish spas. And for a while afterwards, she would regularly post photos of her feet on her Instagram account at Terrifically Toeless to build her own confidence and to help others basically, though her account is now set to private. Thankfully, cases like Victoria seem to be very, very rare, though there have been reports of other people losing their toenails after visiting fish spas. Some have been diagnosed with something called omocomedesis, which is a condition that halts nail growth at the root, which leads to your nails eventually just falling off. So really there are 2 things you have to consider. I know we talked a lot about the fish here and the fish having teeth and spreading infection, but it's not just the fish you have to worry about, it's the water as well. Warm water in tanks that may not be as sterile as you think they may be causes bacteria. You then get an infection. It's unclear really what exactly about fish spas cause this, though doctors believe it's likely as a result of the fish repeatedly nibbling at and around the toenails. So whilst you may not lose a whole foot like Victoria did, it's more common to actually just lose your toenails eventually. To be fair, the issue seems to be extremely rare. But some doctors do believe that it may be actually far more common than we realize, as the toenails take months to slowly deteriorate before falling out. So by the time that happens or even becomes noticeable, most people aren't linking that to their fish pedicure. And when you consider the reported benefits of a fish pedicure, you can't really blame them really. So the reported benefits, right, include reduced calluses, smoother skin and exfoliation of dry skin and rough patches. A normal pedicure in a salon will get you the same results without dunking your feet in possibly contaminated water filled with hundreds of starving fish that may or may not have teeth. You never know. So with easier and safer options available, you have to ask yourself, is the novelty of fish pedicures really worth the risk? Personally, I'm not too sure about it. So really it's the ethical concerns when it comes to the fish and the fact that people may actually be using the wrong fish with teeth, I guess in order to cut costs and buy in batch, and the fact that the water may not be clean whatsoever. So let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Why not watch the whole When Beauty Turns Ugly playlist here? Some general light entertainment here, and I'll see you over there.